In the year 2517, the Spartan-II program was in charge of abducting 75 children at the age of 6 from colonies all over the UNSC-controlled space. To make sure people didn't find out the truth, the children were replaced with flash clones. These were designed to die within weeks and would appear to expire from semi-general illnesses. This was not the case with all. It would seem some parents noticed immediately when their kids were replaced, and in other cases, the kid clones did not die as anticipated. But that's a story for another day. Today, we will discuss the Spartans, not the candidates, but the graduates, and those who were still active as of the events of Halo Infinite, May 2560. But before we get to them, let's briefly discuss those who perished after the Human Covenant War. Spartan Black Team was comprised of Otto 31, Margaret 53, Victor 101, and Roma 143. These are Spartans you've never heard of if you haven't read the Halo comics. Spartan Black Team is just like the Black Ops team of Spartans. They were originally washouts from augmentations received at their graduation. After their bodies rejected the augmentations, Dr. Halsey continued to work with the washouts to try to rehabilitate them. Though there were some successes, there was a lot of failures. Black Team is an example of those success stories. Black Team answered directly to Oni, so they often took on shady missions that were completely off record. Black Team ultimately met their demise when fighting the Didact, a task that would have to be left for Blue Team. Speaking of Blue Team, I think we'll leave them for last. Now that there are no other Spartans that died after the war. Nope, 0, not 1. Alright, let's get into the ones that were still active and running around the galaxy as far as we know. Here are some honorable mentions to the M.I.As, in case they're still out there somewhere. Randall 037, lost after the Battle of Vodin when he fell from the skyhooks to the surface. He was left behind. No one knows what happened to him. No one. James 005, Lee 008, Anton 044 are all assumed KIA based on the events of the Spartans trying to leave Reach after the fall of Reach. Whereas James went missing in action nearly at the beginning of the invasion of Reach, he is listed as MIA because during the conflict he was struck with several needles from a needler and his thruster pack was damaged. The damage caused an explosion that sent James hurtling into space in a wild trajectory. His body was never recovered, and at this point there was still plenty of ships fighting above Reach. There is no certainty that he's dead, considering Linda was basically absolutely dead and still was brought out of death from her conditions. But more on Linda later. Lee and Anton are also MIA and presumed KIA during the battle against the Covenant directly after Master Chief came to Reach in order to rescue the remaining Spartans. While we are to assume that they also died, it can't really be confirmed as they were in slipspace when the event took place. A Covenant vessel fired on them and then they were gone. Sure, that sounds bad, but they were in slipspace after all. They could have dropped out anywhere in the galaxy. As we have seen, when parts of ships break apart, they fall off and land somewhere else in the galaxy because of the nature of slipspace. Same with the buildings in New Mombasa. They get dropped out in space. Finally, for honorable mentions, we have Keiichi 47. We know next to nothing about him. There's a tad of information indicating he participated in battles for Harvest and that he also had contact with the Spirit of Fire, but aside from that, all we know is that he's MIA as of March 3rd, 2558, almost 2 years before the events of Halo Infinite. With the MIAs out of the way, let's start with Grey Team. Grey Team consists of Jai 006, Adriana 111, and Michael 120. Now let's get this out of the way real fast. If I sat here and told you everything Spartans did in their lives, we would be here for hours or days. But we'll see just the highlights of their careers. Okay, so starting off, as a child, Jai was one of the more problematic children in the Spartan program. He attempted escape several times. Before his final attempt, Dr. Halsey got in his head by telling him basically he would lose all his memories, and no one at the orphanage he lived at had even noticed he went missing. Mother of the year, right? Grey Team also consists of washouts. After graduation, though, Jai was paired with 2 other troublesome Spartans. Adriana can often be found not wearing her armor around. She's also considered the muscle of Grey Team. Make that what you will. What I make of it is that Adriana could probably fistfight almost any other Spartan and come out on top. She doesn't really play by the rules, considering she steals entire UNSC ships without permission, and if it means completing her objectives, she will do anything for it. Michael is an expert in computers and technology. I mean, he can literally see how something is built or how a weapon works one time, and now he can copy it. Some say genius, others say photographic memory. He's just too cocky for his own good, in my opinion. He's generally the pilot of Grey Team, but seems to have zero regard for ship safety, as he almost always ends up getting their ships destroyed or damaged. They would often work behind enemy lines to cause as much mayhem and terror as possible. In 2535, Grey Team were sent to Madrigal to erase navigational data from the the colony. The Covenant had already glassed the planet, so the only ones left were insurrectionists and a group of jackals living in an asteroid nearby. They were cooperating. That is an extremely interesting story in regards to the jackals and the way their society works if you want to read about it. Without having too many spoilers, in case you want to read the exploits of Grey Team, Jai comes up on the Arbiter for a 1v1 and scares the Arbiter shitless. This is about 2 decades before he becomes the Arbiter though. Grey Team destroys an entire planet even after the human elite truce, mostly as a revenge for Reach, but they didn't know the war was over. They go into cryo hoping to be found by friendlies, but are in fact not, as far as they know anyway, and they have to escape the Zanghili hot on their trails. Without spoiling how they survive and how fun it is to read their story, once you get halfway through the first book at least, it gets so much better. Grey Team's story does not affect the majority of Halo, but if you love the Halo universe, this is a great solo adventure that expands into the Halo mythos. Check out Halo: The Cole Protocol and Halo Envoy. Currently they're still alive and serve alongside the Sword of Sanghelios as part of an Oni strike force. Their last known status, active as of September 2558. Naomi 10. There's a million things I could say about Naomi. I am gonna keep it brief though. She has the best trilogy in all of the Halo books. Kinda. The most important thing you need to know about her, that she's one of the smartest Spartans, she's extremely intuitive, and was the first to understand the way the Covenant weapons work. Her father is an insurrectionist leader that survived the entire Covenant war while looking for her, since he was 100% convinced the clone was not his real daughter. I don't think I can do her story justice without spoiling a lot of things, but her trilogy is Halo Glasslands, The Thursday War, and Mortal Dictata. There's more books and stuff you can see about her, such as Silent Storm. This one takes place almost immediately after the beginning of the Covenant War. I tell ya, these are long books, but I read them in one day each because I just couldn't put them down. I don't want to spoil her story, but the whole plot she has revolving around her dad in the Spartan program Origins, her friendship and relationships to the Kilo 5 squad are also amazing. Her last known active date, 2558. I don't expect her to be dead, as killing her off screen, or I guess off book, would be a huge slap to the face. The next trio is Omega Team: Leon 011, Robert 025, and August 099. Leon specializes in close combat. You seen this sword? Robert, you seen this big beefy boy? He's first in line to try out and test new armors. August has even less info than the other two. All we have is pretty much this picture, a railgun, aka magnets. They mainly operated in the front lines as they were a team designed to deny UNSC assets. Basically, they implement the Cole Protocol when the rest couldn't go through with it. Have a captured ship behind enemy lines? Omega Team. Have an AI whose info is being retracted? Omega Team. There is very few appearances of Omega Team, but most of what we know about them comes from Halo Wars 1 and 2, especially the collectibles. Maria 062. Now, I am on the fence with Maria. She's the only Spartan that ever said, "Nah, dog," and retired. Retired. A Spartan. I guess the saving grace here is that it is hinted at that she was the one Spartan that was so critically injured that she cannot continue being a Spartan. It is not clear if that's the case, so I want to go ahead and say that if it is, I wholeheartedly apologize to Maria. One more thing I'd like to say about Maria though is she was responsible for testing Master Chief's Mjolnir Mark 6 armor, so I guess you could say she's a big lady even for Spartan standards. Last known active as of 2552, but her being retired means she probably just won't be dying anytime soon and probably works for Oni. Now we have Red Team, also known as the Spartans for most of Halo Wars 1 and all of Halo Wars 2. Douglas 042, Jerome 092, and Alice 130. They were all washouts from the Spartan-II project, but managed to successfully rehabilitate and become full Spartans. If you've seen the Halo Wars 1 cutscenes, which 99% of you hearing this probably know what I'm talking about,
let's go.
Whoa.
Problem?
No, we've just never had Spartan ringside seats before.
Let's get to work. Our entrance wasn't exactly subtle. done. Time to go home.
Whoa. You've been busy?
Not as busy as you.
Wait, what? Wait a minute!
Then you know, even as washouts, they are absolute units that cannot be destroyed or stopped. The events of Halo Wars 2 focus more around them than Halo Wars 1, so let's just have a few little extra facts and background about them. Douglas is one of the tallest Spartans at 7 feet 4 inches. That's 2.23 meters. That boy is huge. He likes to carry around a 4-barreled rocket launcher, and he is said to be the beacon of light amongst the Spartans. He's the one that demonstrates the most hope of them all. Jerome is the leader of Red Team. As a child, he lived in a colony that was super underdeveloped, so he took on a life of crime. When he was a trainee in the Spartan program, he attempted to run away several times, but once he realized he was being selfish, he stepped up to become a fearless leader. He's the Spartan most commonly known for using the Spartan laser. Alice is the example of shoot first, ask questions while reloading. She's extremely eager to take part of any conflict. The Spartan program only served to make her happy, as she relished in the challenge. Together, these three have caused the Banished a lot of headaches during the campaign against them on the Ark. And they are technically the youngest Spartans, considering they spent decades in cryosleep. So amongst all the Spartans, you could say they are at their prime, but their lack of experience shows when fighting Aatrox. Lastly, we know as of the events of Halo Wars 2 that they were active in late 2558. It does go to ask the question, are they still on the Ark as of the events of Halo Infinite? We don't know if they're dead or alive, but safe bet is to say that they are, considering how much screen time they've received. Lastly, we have Blue Team, comprised of the most interesting and talented individuals in Halo. The leader, Master Chief, John 117, Blue 2, also known as Fred 104, the marksman, Linda 058, and Kelly 087. The marathonist. Kelly is said to be the fastest Spartan, and this is by far. She can run circles around the rest of them with little to no effort, literally making her the fastest human ever. With armor, she can run at about 40 miles per hour, but even without, she can be only slightly slower, and it's not just them feet. She has reflexes faster than any other Spartan, so much so that even having a sparring match with her means she has to handicap herself to give you a chance, and by you I mean any other Spartan. Her combat experience is extremely extensive, much like the rest of Blue Team. Linda, in my opinion, is the most lethal Spartan, considering she's a sniper. When it comes to being a marksman, she's unmatched. It's not even close. You think Halo 2 Jackal snipers are deadly? She could probably beat all of them with one bullet, just bouncing it off rocks and buildings. The most impressive display of her prowess comes in the way of Halo First Strike. During a mission shortly after she was resuscitated, yeah, she died. Guys, she was dead from plasma burns. I can't even explain to you how hardcore it is that she was dead, and a few days later, she's like, nah, we got a mission. Well, during which she was hanging upside down from a cable at an angle so light wouldn't reflect on her directly while aiming a sniper with one hand. Oh yeah, she manages to kill a few elites out of their banshees through the smallest openings. She is my personal favorite Spartan, as you can probably see from how many videos I've made about her. I'll take Buck's advice here.
You ever fall for a woman? Make sure she's got balls.
Fred is one of the first Spartans to be recognized as leaders in the candidates. He actually outranks Master Chief. Honestly, there's a lot of things you can say about Fred, but unfortunately, it all just comes out sounding like he is Master Chief Light or Chief Diet, Master Zero. That's not to say he's unexceptional. Honestly, he's the closest thing to Master Chief in the universe. Overall, as a team, Spartan Blue Team has accomplished so much that is only hinted at during Halo 5. So since Master Chief has had 5 whole games dedicated to himself, I think you know what he's capable of. The rest will be me gushing out over Blue Team and their accomplishments. Silent Storm is one of the newer books, but it takes place during the early years of the Covenant War. Blue Team is going to hijack a ship in order to get Covenant tech and reverse engineer it. The plan doesn't quite go as intended, and it's a really fun book in my opinion, so I would recommend reading that if you want to get into the early parts of the Covenant War. Operation Warm Blanket is to retrieve Dr. Halsey from on board a Covenant ship and its fleet, but it is one of the most thrilling pieces of animation in the last 25 years. If you want to watch it, it's Halo Legends The Package. During the battle for Reach, they were split up, but in charge of defending the orbital space station to stop the Covenant from getting navigational data, and the ground team to defend the power generators for the orbital defense platforms. While the space team consisted of Linda, Chief, and James, as we went over, is most likely dead. Linda was clinically dead, but she is a boss, so she lives through it as I mentioned earlier, and Fred and Kelly managed to survive the Battle of Reach, the fall of Reach, the glassing of Reach, the looting and pirating of Reach, and the Covenant trying to hunt them down for weeks before Chief came to rescue them after blowing up the first Halo. But to be completely honest, every Spartan alive on this list survived the fall of Reach, so that is a credit to them all. I mean, have you played Halo Reach? How long did you survive in the Lone Wolf mission? Okay, now multiply that times 10 million, and that's blue team. I mean, technically, at the time, they were red team. As far as we're currently aware, Fred, Linda, and Kelly are still alive, and truthfully, I don't see them dying unless it's in a movie or in a main Halo campaign. They are huge parts of the lore, and at this point, killing them would be a second to killing Master Chief himself. If you want to know more about blue team, I recommend Halo, Fall of Reach, First Strike, which is even better in my opinion. If you want something more new and fresh, Silent Storm and Shadows of Reach are relatively new books. They also display how truly badass blue team is. But honestly, if you don't want to read any novels or aren't sure if you want to commit to the long-ish book, then there's the Halo comics, which are pretty good too. Halo Escalation has all of the blue team goodies, and my personal favorites, because I'm a Linda simp, Halo Lone Wolf. I hope I gave you some good place to pick up stories where you're more interested in. If you want me to make a complete in-depth look video on Spartans, let me know. If you want a spoiler or a spoiler-free breakdown of the books, that could also be fun. Or if you want me to actually tackle big battles that Spartans changed entirely next time, let me know. Have a great day, Reclaimers.
Sir, finishing this fight